This was Line of Duty, which is back after a 2-year break. It's Series 5. It aired on Sunday on BBC One. And this one is perhaps a bit of a departure from the ones before, where we've had a guest lead and the AC-12 folk investigating them, because this was the start of the end, I suppose, of the Balaclava Men storyline. And I have to admit, as nice as I was to all the PRs that I met for Line of Duty at the screening, and excited as I was a little bit apprehensive going in, because the Balaclava side of the story has never been my favourite bit about it. So I was kind of worried about if it's going to take over the whole series as an arc, am I going to be as invested? And it didn't take very long for me to be proved completely wrong, as I did really enjoy this first episode, which centres on a team of sort of clandestine cops led by Stephen Graham and a new actress that I should have looked up the name of, Rashenda Sandel, or yes. Sandel, is with him as well, and they are sort of they're a cop.
Is she with him? See, that's interesting.
Well, no, she's with him in the sense of they're working together.
Are they?
I didn't get that either, Luke.
Oh God, I need to rewatch it.
I've written a whole recap, not suggesting.
Okay, no, Sarah, you set it up the way you looked at it then.
My presumption is that they were a criminal gang who were not, as we're introduced to them from, and then when they're told by Detective Superintendent Alison Powell that they have a cop embedded in there, they make the assumption, Steve Arnott and Vicky Fleming, that it must be the woman because she doesn't shoot the cop, right?
As an audience member, I sort of did that as well, unknowingly.
Well, weirdly, I didn't, because if you look at it, I always thought it was Stephen Graham, and they'd got it wrong, because Steve Arnott is always wrong.
Yeah.
And if you looked back, she's the one who has to do all the criminal stuff. She has to try and shoot the guy. She has to make the negotiation when the drugs and the money are put into place. But he's always there being threatening, but he never actually does anything criminal.
Yeah, that's true.
It is a sort of subversion thing, as you were saying, Sarah. It's like we're meant to think it is this female because she's the one who leaves the copper alive.
And she's nervous. She's nervous. So then I wondered, is she working for someone else and has been asked to spy on him because they don't trust him? Is she an undercover cop from a different group? We don't know at all. Or is she just somebody who's been caught up in this and thinks, I hate it and I don't want to do it and I'm frigging terrified of Stephen Graham's character?
That was my assumption originally, that she's just in too deep and wanted to escape.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was with you, Sarah. I guess it was Stephen Graham rather than the lady.
Well, judging by the reaction in the screening room, nobody else guessed that. They all
I heard that. Yeah, and I was surprised when I watched it, because I think maybe I read too many crime novels, but also it's just that fact that I can't believe Steve would be right.
I remember the last press screening, which ended with Jason Watkins trying to finish off Tandy Newton, and then she sort of is alive at the end. I remember that gasp still in the press press screening.
Doesn't top the gasp after Jessica Raine was thrown out the window.
And again,
the best one.
Yeah, and I was again in that press screening for that one. Again, I think in terms of openings and closings, I didn't think this was as strong as other Line of Duty opening episodes have been. I mean, this is sort of centres around, as you know, as we've sort of mentioned, a police convoy of sort of captured drugs being ambushed by this gang of Balaclava people. It goes from there, really, and that's when AC-12 start investigating, because, again, a copper has been left alive. From the investigation, they get the connection through to, is it Manit, the officer, whose cousin is the reason she was being blackmailed in the last series by the copper whose name I've forgotten.
Hilton.
Hilton. Yeah. And unfortunately, she ends up being the first episode death in this episode.
First of many, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I liked how they didn't leave that hanging, because obviously we had that as a
they left her
thread.
Hanging a bit.
Yeah, as a sort of thread in the last series, didn't we? That she was the dodgy one, feeding information and things like that.
It's not as punchy an opening as, say, some of the previous ones, but I think it was an opening that was closer to Series 1 and is more interesting in what it has set up. then perhaps the Family Newton, Jason Watkins one, I actually thought was far too broad. The opening last year, I thought it was ludicrous at times. I mean, the series redeemed itself, but I was just like, oh god, it's so over the top and sort of more networky American. I felt it just didn't feel like the Line of Duty I like. Whereas this one is very much, I mean, I love Stephen Graham as actor anyway, but it's very much, is he somebody who's helping them, or has he gone completely to the other side? Is he a crook? Is he a criminal? Who's he really conning? Is he going to con AC-12, or is he conning the criminals? And I just think there's a lot of potential for character development with him and with her character, but also the sort of idea of the cousin having a gambling addiction and Superintendent Hastings clearly having no money and being really bad with money. Does he have some sort of gambling thing? Is that why they're throwing it out? There's a lot of, I thought there was a lot going on in that episode at a quieter pace that might become really interesting. So I really quite liked it.
We don't ever in this country have these returning shows year after year that move one plot forward. It's very rare that we get that. What I would say about it, and what I find so interesting, is I would say that Adrian Dunbar, Vicky McClure and Martin Cromston are fantastic. The core unit are so good together, and as soon as they start interacting, you feel at home and you feel this is Line of Duty. But in terms of characters, taking Adrian Dunbar aside, because he had some good one-liners that made us all laugh at the screening, but the characters of Steve Arnott and Kate Fleming, they're quite thinly drawn, really, aren't they? I don't know whether that's done by design, but I couldn't really tell you anything about them other than he's learned to walk pretty well in the last 2 years. It's weird because all the other shows that we mentioned at the top that we rewatch are so full of rich characters, and this is led by characters that I don't really have an emotional connection to, really.
I don't agree with thinly drawn, really. I think these are people whose life is dominated by their work, and I think Jen Mercurio drops little hints about personal life throughout. Kate's relationship with her, I think she was married and her son, and they sort of...
Well, we do see a brief home life scene in this as well.
What was interesting about that is I couldn't have bet money that was the husband she got back to, or whether it might be a new man.
No idea.
I can't remember, because it would be series 3 when she and Dot are having a heart-to-heart, aren't they? And she's estranged from her family at that stage. And now she's sort of back with them again. Steve has sort of a wandering eye for the ladies, doesn't he, and things like that. And
a tendency to sleep with witnesses.
Yeah, and we see him on Tinder, don't we, in this first episode? So there is little bits, and the stuff with Hastings, we saw his marriage crumble, didn't we? Because he decided to go against Mark Bonner's character, I think, wasn't it, in series 2?
Perhaps that's it. They're so that because we only see them at work. That's who we are. Those are the people we're seeing, as opposed to their backstories as such. It'll be like when your family gets back, Sarah, and you won't have seen them for a few hours.
Yeah, it will be. And I'll be, I have a whole secret double life making fun.
We're all going to continue watching, aren't we? That goes without saying.
Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely. And I do think it's a great setup, this one. I think it's a really interesting setup, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they take it.
I hope Hastings isn't, at the end of the day, bad, really, because it ruins the whole thing.
It's got to be a double bluff, hasn't it? Because they've set it up as something that you're thinking about. They've made it really obvious that, is he a bit dodgy? He's done several sort of looks to camera, and there are little bits and hints that he might be dodgy, but I don't think he will be, or maybe it's just sort of wishful thinking. But I think the fact that they've put it in your mind means that he won't be.
I would be absolutely devastated, and in fact I was going to say I just interviewed Adrian Dunbar about this very subject for Sunday, which was in Sunday's Observer, and he was very cagey, but he agreed with me that he would make a very unlikely criminal mastermind, given how bad he is with cash. I find it hard to believe that an evil financial overlord would live in a travel lodge, even if he was trying to sort of cover his tracks, because we know that he's not good with cash, and that does seem to suggest he can't really be the ultimate bad guy.